A good district attorney has announced charges against 3 cops for lying under oath and for violating their public trust, which led to the incarceration of a black man for 25 years, a man that never should have been arrested in the first place. Let me give you this highlight. Philadelphia DA has announced charges for 3 cops who lied under oath on Friday, August 13th, that 3 former Philadelphia police officers are facing criminal charges, including perjury, in relation to a miscarriage of justice that put an innocent man in prison for 25 years. Now, I say often on this program, leadership matters. Leadership matters. Let's put up a picture of this one guy who made a difference here, okay? That's your district attorney. That's Larry Krasner. Larry Krasner is supported by people like Bernie Sanders and others who are transformational political figures. A grand jury recommended criminal charges against former homicide detectives Manuel Santiago, Martin Devlin, and Frank Jastrzemski on the basis of their testimony in the 2016 retrial of Anthony Wright. Let's put up a picture of Mr. Anthony Wright. That's Mr. Anthony Wright, wrongfully convicted of rape and murder of an elderly woman. Spent 25 years in prison because of dirty ass cops. Let me go back to the background of these cops. In the 2016 retrial of Anthony Wright, remember this is the retrial, whose 1993 conviction for the rape and murder of an elderly woman was vacated on the basis of DNA evidence in 2014. The detectives are accused of lying on the witness stand during Wright's retrial. That is why the statute of limitations started over. They lied at the retrial. Obviously, they lied during the initial trial as well. And the lying during the retrial threatened to send Mr. Wright back to prison for the rest of his natural life. Once again, Mr. Wright has been exonerated. The detectives, each of whom has served with the department for more than 25 years. You're talking about a real good old boy network here. They turned themselves in last Friday. They were released on bail and a hearing is scheduled for later in the month. Each of the detectives, have been mentioned in at least 4 different cases in which defendants were ultimately exonerated. Let me give you a little more context to that. These witnesses that they brought up, the testimony they provided was questionable from day one. And because of this new information, they are being researched and investigated for all of these other supposedly solved crimes in that department, okay? This is a quote from the district attorney. DA Krasner says, and I quote, "These charges are an indication that a Philadelphia jury, in this case a grand jury, can carefully look at evidence and can understand that the law must apply equally to people, whether they are in law enforcement or supposed to be served by law enforcement." This is all we've been saying since day one. You see, there's a level of corruption in damn near every industry under the sun. The issue is not corruption. The issue is the immunity from accountability and responsibility, and yes, prosecution when required. And that is what has been happening with law enforcement too long in this country. They have been exonerated, they have been given immunity when they should have been held accountable. So let me give you some background as to what happened. On October 19th, 1991, a 77-year-old woman, Louise Talley, was found dead in her Philadelphia home by police. She had been raped and stabbed to death. Horrific crime. Police said someone told them that Mr. Wright, the wrongfully convicted guy, had committed the crime and directed them to a nearby home where a man named Roland St. James was arrested after he told police he rented the space to people who smoked crack. A television belonging to this 77-year-old elderly woman who's dead was found there, according to the police. At the police station, James, under the impression that he was the primary suspect in this murder, signed a statement saying that Mr. Wright told him he had killed Tally and stolen the television. Another man staying at the home, John Richardson, also had been brought to the station, and he signed a statement claiming that it was Mr. Wright who asked him to be a lookout while he entered this 77-year-old's victim's home. All of this was a lie. 100% coerced, fabricated by the police, coerced out of these supposed witnesses. It gets deeper. The police brought Mr. Wright to the police station, and these detectives all claimed that within a matter of hours, he had signed a typed confession admitting to the rape and murder of Miss Tally. On June 8th, 1993, the jury convicted Mr. Wright of capital murder, rape, theft, burglary, robbery, and weapons violation on the basis of testimony from James Richardson and two teenagers who claimed they saw Mr. Wright enter the home. He was sentenced to life in prison. All of these witness statements were lies, coerced by the detectives who coordinated their efforts in order to convict one man, Mr. Wright. Let's put up Mr. Wright's picture again, the victim of the criminal justice system. That poor soul. Look at him. He gave the system 25 years and did not owe them 25 minutes. It continues. By 2013, after 8 years of Wright appealing to have DNA evidence examined in the case, testing showed that another man named Ronnie Bird had committed the rape. He had already died in prison by that time. The following year, the district attorney's office agreed to vacate Wright's sentence. Now I want to show you how diabolical these SOBs are. They know he didn't do it. He doesn't get released immediately. The DNA evidence not only cleared him, but showed them exactly who did it because the person was in the system. They still do not overturn the conviction they vacated, which means he can be prosecuted again. The district attorney at that time, Seth Williams, decided to prosecute Mr. Wright again, but this time with a new theory of the crime, saying, oh, well, okay, so he didn't do it, but he was an accomplice to the crime, leading to the retrial. The cops lied at the retrial. Everybody saw through the damn lies, and Mr. Wright has now been fully exonerated. They know he didn't do it. Think about that. The DNA evidence not only exonerated the man, it proved who did it. And they still tried to prosecute him with lying cops, hoping that the words of these lying police officers would outweigh the actual science of DNA. And it did not, because there are people who are woke now. Adrienne, you're an attorney. Wow, all of these twists and turns, and then they still try to convict this man under a new prosecutorial theory.
You know, you said diabolical, and that would be the completely and totally accurate word. It is it's just so disheartening that our system is operating like this, where we see people be essentially accused of crimes that they didn't commit, and then having officers, detectives like these 3 cops go out of their way to falsify evidence, to create a story and a narrative, while the individual who's actually guilty of these rapes and murders is out there on the streets. Lord knows that individual may have continued to commit more crimes, but because these detectives decided to pin the offense on an innocent man, we're never gonna know if that individual was out there causing more harm to our society. And not to mention the harm to Mr. Wright, spending 25 years of his life behind bars for something he did not commit, and to continually be accused of it. The fact that he's exonerated, yes, it is a powerful thing, but at the same time, that's 25 years of his life.
Yep.
And I would be remiss not to bring up the fact that it's Black people who suffer the most when we're talking about false convictions, when we're talking about innocent people. Black people are just 13% of the US population, yet 47% of innocent people who are exonerated. And we also know that innocent Black people are convicted at a rate of 8 times that of innocent white people when it comes to murder. The fact is that we have these false accusations, we have these narratives, and when the justice system plays a role in perpetuating that and pointing fingers falsely, what we have is nothing but injustice.
That's right. The city, the city of Philadelphia, they did settle with Mr. Wright, $9.8 million. Not enough, not even close. There's nothing you can do to give this man back 25 years that you stole from him.